when my sister and I and my mother, we started what was originally called the Philippe Cousteau Foundation, an organization in honor of my father.
Logical thing to
yes,
call it, because it was about your father.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're proud of my father's legacy and carrying on in the spirit of that. The Cousteau Society, which she became the head of, and subsequently has changed a lot since then. I'll say no more. Decided that that was not what they wanted, what she wanted, and so they sued us.
You were not allowed to use your father's name.
They sued us.
Right.
It was more about Cousteau. The Cousteau Society had the trademark on Cousteau, and to her, she was the only one that should carry on that work. This is the new Madame Cousteau. So we spent. She sued us. We spent 2 years in litigation. Now the challenge is when as you alluded to, we didn't get anything when my grandfather died. Nothing, not even a photograph.
Right.
And we spent 2 years. We had pro bono lawyers that helped us a lot, and we finally had to. I mean, if anybody. I don't know, I'd be surprised if there aren't any lawyers in the room because there's so many in Washington, D.C. But if there are any lawyers in the room, you know how difficult litigation can be. And it was something that we finally had to just settle.
Give it up.
And what we agreed finally to some restrictions because we just couldn't fight it. We had nothing left to fight anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not as clear as not being able to use our name. We can use our whole name. I use Philippe Cousteau. My sister used Alexandre Cousteau, which is what we always did anyway. So
well, I'm happy to hear that you are allowed to use your own name.
Well, for a time, the argument was that we couldn't write a book and we couldn't do work and we couldn't anything. Use
but you
our
can't
name.
call anything your name.
Well, I mean, from it comes into a branding issue and it gets complicated. But as long as we use our full name, we're fine. Okay. But it's not.
Could you do the undersea world of Philippe Cousteau? Probably not.
I'd have. Maybe.
You'd have to pay a lot of lawyers.
Well, we'd have to,
Because I think didn't Jean-Michel have a resort somewhere that he wasn't allowed?
Well, he called it the Cousteau Fiji Island Resort.
And he wasn't allowed to do that.
And what they argued, and I think in some ways rightfully so, I mean, we never wanted to just use Cousteau because we never tried to rest on those laurels or try and just use that. It's certainly been an opportunity and legacy that we're proud of, but nothing that we ever wanted to just abuse and take advantage of and exploit. Exactly. So we always were about our father and our full names and with the work that we were doing. So the Cousteau Fiji Island Resort was just Cousteau. It didn't say Jean-Michel. And my grandfather did not want to. He was alive at the time. He did not want to be associated with that.
Oh,
and at the time, a lot of people felt that it was just Cousteau. There was some confusion. So he made it the Jean-Michel Cousteau Fiji Island Resort. So just to clarify.
Well, so in some, there may be only 10 of you with the name, but only a couple of you can use it.
Well, that's certainly the argument. And the one who wasn't even born in the family. But we won't even go there.
Well, we won't get there. But okay, so why Washington? Why are you here? You could be anywhere in the world.
I love DC's a great. My sister came to Georgetown. She went to Georgetown.
Was that the first family member to put down an anchor here?
It was. It was the first kind of introduction into Washington D.C. And then when she graduated, she was in Florida for a time, moved to Paris, and I was still in. She graduated from Georgetown. I was still in high school.
You were in school up in Rhode Island.
I was in Rhode Island.
Where did you go up there?
St. George's. And then,
nice view.
It was beautiful. I mean, that's one of the reasons I went there.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful view, and it was a beautiful view.
Yes.
There were a couple of reasons, but we'll leave that for another time. I went. Newport's a great place, and I spent sophomore, junior, senior year there.
And were you already a seafaring dude then?
I wasn't. I was 16 when I went on my first big expedition. I'd been diving before with various crew members and things all my life, and certainly been exposed to those things. But I was indeed a pollywog. And yeah, I have been doing that all my life. But to kind of go back to your question, this is a long answer to your simple question. My sister's experience here in Georgetown left her with a fond memory of Washington D.C. And when I graduated from high school, I went to Scotland for 4 years for University of St. Andrews, and then we were in Florida for a year. And then we were kind of looking for the right place to come to bring Earth Echo and to bring the work that we were doing. And D.C. was the logical choice. I mean, it's a great town. It's a small, big city. 3 great airports.
Right.
A growing city that's improving, getting better, and it's just growing and becoming safer, and new restaurants and new bars and new clubs. So there's a vibrant, there's a fun energy in this city that we felt a few years ago.
Was there a component of being here that had to do? I mean, do you do lobbying? Do you get involved with politics? Do you get involved with government?
I don't. We don't formally get involved with any kind of politics or government. Though I've spent time. I'm wondering if that's my phone.
Don't
I should
worry
move away
about
from
it.
the microphone.
It happens all the time.
I know these.
We're always
things.
buzzing and humming here.
There you go. It wasn't. Maybe it wasn't my phone.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It wasn't for lobbying. There are a lot of
Right.
other nonprofits here. I mean, certainly I've spent time on the Hill. I've met with senators and congressmen and talking about these issues and supporting them, but not. We are a 501c3, so by IRS standards,
Yeah.
we are a public education nonprofit. So we don't. It's definitely not my phone.
Yeah.
We don't do formal lobbying, but there are a lot of other NGOs, and Discovery is based here, and that was another consideration
Right.
as we were looking to get more involved in media. We'd done some media programs here with Echo, but then to get more involved in the TV world, Discovery is based here, National Geographic is based
Yeah.
here. So it's just a really great place.
You are traveling a lot of the time. I mean, you're on the road more than half of the year.
Oh, easily more than half of the year.
And you've just come back from the Bahamas, correct? And then before that, you were in Africa. You were in Africa. Is this all working? Is this all for a particular project?
Yes, I'm co-hosting a series for Discovery. It's a co-production between Discovery Channel, BBC, and BBC Worldwide.
Right.
And it's an 8-part series, 8 1-hours, called Oceans,
Right.
and it's exploring around the world the state of the world's oceans and seas. And
Is every episode an ocean?
every episode is either an ocean or a sea. We're doing, I believe, all 5 oceans and 3 seas. So I leave actually so the Bahamas was kind of the iconic place for the Atlantic Ocean. That was the Atlantic Ocean story,
Right.
because the Bahamas and the Gulf Stream have a very interesting relationship. And
Nice
the
place to
animals
be
and
when
things.
it's winter here.
It was terrible too.
Oh, actually, it was.
They had to drag me out there,
No.
kicking and screaming. And then the same thing for the Red Sea in a few weeks, and then Africa. Obviously, was just a terrible place to go. So it's a real challenge and a chore to do this.
So and the point is to go under these oceans, right?
The point is more a holistic, actually, exploration of these systems and why they're important to us. Because the oceans are the life support systems of this planet. They regulate our climate and our temperature.
Absolutely.
Major source
Yeah.
of protein for billions of people, commerce, etc. And so we look at all the various different aspects in these places. So the Bahamas, we looked at everything from sharks to shipwrecks and the historical trade of the importance of the Atlantic Ocean
Tourism.
to tourism to invasive species to oceanography and geological issues
Right.
and past cultures diving in the Cayenne caves up in
Right.
the Abacos. So looking at all the different elements that the oceans mean, not just looking at fish and coral reefs, but
Right.
what are all the myriad things that the oceans do for us, and
Right.
why are they important to life on Earth?
Now it was interesting when you were on Andros Island. You dove in a lake and you went
Yes.
free diving in a lake, and that was not like a great experience, right? I mean, maybe interesting, but a little spooky.
Well, there's a small lake that was discovered, I think in 96, 97 off in southern part of Andros Island that mimics what the oceans were like a few billion years ago. There's a very little life within it, as there was several billion years ago. Very little oxygen in the lake, and there was very little oxygen in the ocean several billion years ago. Not a very nice place, the planet, a few billion years ago. And the first layer is a somewhat fresh-ish, brackish area of clear water that's about 60 feet, a layer about 60 feet. And then there's a layer of bacteria that's about 1 meter. That's a very thick red bacteria, high in hydrogen sulfide. It's very toxic.
How old is this lake?
We think it's several 100,000 years
Oh,
old.
okay, all right. So
As this
isn't-
bacteria
this isn't a
slowly
rain
eats into
puddle.
the No. This is like, I think, 140 feet deep or so. And then beneath this layer of bacteria is another saltier layer of water that the 2 layers never meet. They're just separated by this 1 meter layer of a 3-foot layer of
Right.
bacteria. And it's a very inhospitable place. I mean, I went free diving. The other host would go to dive in it.
Right.
And
Does-
the
does-
hydrogen
do any
sulfide starts to
animals
eat away
live
at
in
you.
it
It just
bigger
starts to eat
than
away
ba-
at all the metal
Right.
gets tarnished, and there's very little fish in the bacteria in the lake. But we think it's really what the oceans would have looked like a few billion years ago. So it's kind of a way to look back in time
Right.